Special meeting to order, January 19, 2024, 3 p.m. Next order of business is Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please stand and join us in reciting the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is agenda item 3, citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor and consideration of others wishing to speak. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. So if there are any citizen comments today, I would invite you just to maybe stand up and walk a little bit closer with the speakers here. I don't know if those are speakers or if they work, so. Yeah. John?
Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, John Thompson, 3205 Park Ridge Way. I am the president of the International Association for Lewiston Firefighters. We are excited for negotiations to get started, and if you guys have any questions at any point in time throughout the day or throughout the upcoming weeks, please feel free to reach out to any one of us, and we'll be happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you. Appreciate it, John. Thank you very much. John, as the president, no, you could probably have one of your other members stand up and say something too. Don't you have that ability?
I can, yes.
Tim Parker, I'll stand up just because I can. And it took a lot.
We have to limit our comments to 3
minutes. Yeah, I can. I'll go about 30 seconds. It took a lot of arm twisting to get John to stand up and talk, and so. But again, I'm going to be operating as the negotiator for the union, and I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with the city and work collaboratively with you guys. It's been a really good working relationship for over 50 years. Our contract has been in existence, and the union's been in existence. So, I think it's a really good working relationship where we've been able to maintain the interests of the city and the interests of the firefighters. So, I really hope, and Nikki and I have a really good working relationship. I think this is going to be a collaborative process, and it's going to be a pretty simple process. So hopefully we're able to identify everybody's needs and interests and find middle ground and keep our great fire department, our great personnel, and our fantastic brand new chief moving forward. So I appreciate it.
Chiefs back there.
Yeah, I should say chiefs. I don't want to, Chief Lucas, I don't want to discount his stature. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more citizen comments, we'll move on to room number 4, discussion items. Please note that identifying an item as an action item does not require the City Council to vote on that item. Item A is collective labor agreement with the International Association of Firefighters, local number 1773. The purpose here today for everyone's benefit is review and discussion about the current collective labor agreement between the City of Lewiston and the International Association of Firefighters, local number 1773, which agreement expires on September 30th, 2024. So I'll just add a comment to that. Our purpose for wanting to put this on a work session, and we're going to have 2 of these, is so that council can understand the contract, as best as they can to get prepared for when we actually enter into collective bargaining. So that if they have some questions or if we agree with something, hopefully investing now will save some time and effort later on, if there's some questions that they can take a look at those now. So it's not our purpose, and we won't get into discussions of negotiation today. We can't. It wasn't advertised that way. So if it sounds like we're getting there, somebody just wave me down. But otherwise, we're going to let council members ask questions if they have questions. And Human Resource Director Province is here to help us understand maybe what some of these terms mean or how they apply. And then we'll just do our best to learn what we can from this. So with that, councilors, if there are no questions, I will turn it over to Director Province.
Yeah, just a little introduction here. The union, by state statute, we are required to bargain with the firefighters. By state statute, we have 30 days from the day that we start negotiating to bargain. And then should we not come to an agreement at the end of 30 days, we go to fact finding. So you'll see in the beginning of the contract, it references that city code, and that's what it's referring to. So I thought rather than just read this all to you, because I think you can read it yourself, I just thought we could go article by article and you guys could ask any questions. Are there any questions on Article 1 or 2, recognition and union security? Article 3 or Article 4? Looks like probationary period and union business.
I had a question
Okay.
about the union business.
Yeah.
It says, it talks about not exceeding 288 hours per year collectively. Have we ever met that?
I believe we have.
Typically, that gets met by the union leadership bodies going to their leadership training throughout the year. And so they end up going on their own a lot past that and having to get work trades to be able to do that.
I have a follow-up question. Am I reading this correct, that the city is paying for fire staff to be paid, or we're paying for them to go train union business, not necessarily fire training?
Correct.
The provision for union work to go to these things, it's typically a union-sponsored event, but it's leadership training is what it's about. It's to get the union leaders, the train. Union leadership positions are filled through an election process, not through a process that we would have in your normal course of progression where you join the fire department, we train you, you go through task book evolutions, and through years you become more experienced and more versed in the leadership of the fire department. With the union leadership, they don't always have that opportunity, so that this is where they go to get leadership training, which helps them lead their union body, which makes everybody's job easier. When you have, I've been involved with a union where there weren't people that were experienced for a little while. We had everybody under 5 years that were in union leadership, and they really didn't understand how the fire service worked. And so I've seen what happens if they don't have that good leadership training and going through that. So they don't get paid to go, they get time off work if they were scheduled to work. If it's during their 6 days off, they go and they just, that's on their own. We don't pay them to go. It's just that we give them time off should it fall the union conferences that they go to, or any other training conferences that they go to, utilizing that time is on their days worked. We give them that time off.
Thank you, that's,
And sorry,
With
do I need to introduce myself every time I stand up? Or?
yes.
Fine.
Well played, well played.
And it is time off with pay.
Okay, so now I have more questions, because it states the union president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. They're being paid for this training, paid time off, to go participate in this, and it's leadership training. So we're not paying for people that aren't officers that will come into those officers' positions to have that leadership training. We're paying the people that are already in those leadership positions.
No, it says or other members approved by the union president.
Okay, but not to exceed 288 hours total.
A year, correct. And so there's a whole convention for what's it, young the name of it, sorry, Young Leaders Convention. Young Leaders Convention, yeah, that are for people that are brand new to the fire service to really teach them about the fire service.
Any additional questions on union business? Any questions on Article 5, prevailing rights? Or Article 6, working rules? You will see in here that it says city manager. We will propose that modification in negotiations, most likely.
I think I already said it to you though in email with the manager thing, so I just didn't know if we were wanting to change that or not, because there's a couple other sections in here that state manager instead of mayor, but yeah, that was one of the ones, at least in this one.
Yeah, so into the next contract, that would be something
It will just,
that would be discussed, yeah, that could be discussed, yeah.
okay, well, that's my concern.
Okay. Nothing in working rules. Article 7, non-discrimination.
Well, can we,
Oh.
yeah, I'm not gonna let us off that easy,
Okay.
so maybe if Chief Lucas or Chief Reitmeyer could just give the council an example or two of rules and regulations that you may provide or adopt, for the safety, the well-being, or whatever of the staff, the firefighters.
Without a doubt. We are not short on standard operating procedures or standard operating guidelines. It's what, or protocols you would call them. It's what guides most of what we do. A lot of what the fire service initially did was technician-based work. We trained people to follow a set of theories or a recipe, if you will, on how to be successful. As the fire service has progressed, and especially in the last 30 years with EMS integration, with the addition of hazardous materials response, urban search and rescue, technical rescue, all of the hazards that have faced America and the American Fire Service has adapted. We continue to develop those protocols, those procedures. We also really have started to develop the members themselves, because you can't write a recipe for everything they face. And so what we really work on is in professional development for our chief officers and our officers all the way down, is to give good leaders intent, and then to make sure people are not only trained in what to do, but trained in how to make good decisions and make that risk decision that's right at the operation. So we have SOPs. Some of them are silly. When you get into them and start reading them, you can name a name to each person. This is the Bill Smith rule on thou shalt not use sick leave without sight of this or whatever. And then some of them are very, very serious about when to enter a structure that's on fire and to do a rescue.
Is something like the amount of personnel that responds to each call in an SOP?
Yes and no. There's some guidelines about certain types of calls, and that's what we set up with dispatch, so that when a certain type of a call is tripped, they'll send that number of resources. We always give the responding officers the leeway to add additional resources, and then when they arrive on scene to downsize the resource requirements as necessary. So a good example would be a structure fire where we automatically add on, perhaps City of Clarkston and the Sutton County Fire District will each be sending an engine. Once we arrive and size it up and decide what resources we need, then we'll cancel those.
Because I'm not sure what we're doing in the valley to try to break these records, but we've had a lot of structural fires, more so than usual. And I've noticed that it averages about 18 personnel members attending those structure fires. And so just wanting to know if that's again, I'm for the men's safety, so is there an SOP that we need to be paying attention to make sure we have that allotment, or et cetera?
Yeah, on a good day, when everything is aligned right, utilizing our mutual aid is, so with 16 members on scene within 6 minutes, and then within 8 minutes, 21 members on scene for the standard 2,000 square foot, 2-story residential structure. That's the NFPA 1710 guideline. This last weekend, in these last couple of fires, we've been light on that, and that's been because we've had multiple calls going on at the same time. So we've had Chief Lucas and I the other night, Friday night, when it was 2 degrees outside and our guys were out putting a fire out over on Silcott Road. Chief Lucas and I responded to somebody who had fallen and needed help getting up, and I think they were surprised to see.
Yeah, I think they were.
Especially me go, oh, who's that guy?
Yeah, I guess that's my concern is when we talk about standards and procedures, and then the fact that the fire department is our only EMS provider, besides our mutual aid, obviously, but are we stretched too thin, or can we reconfigure to, again, safety and not wearing out our guys and putting them in undue situations that if we can avoid that. So just as we discuss future strategic planning, those are things I'd like to understand. So thanks, Chief.
You bet, thank you.
Chief, I think Councilor Spickelmeyer has a question, but I don't know who it might be for. Councilor Spickelmeyer, there you go.
My question's actually for the next article, Article 8. So I just put my hand up for
To get ready.
Okay, well, we can move on to Article 8.
You've got the floor.
Yeah, what's your question?
Okay, the question I had, I was looking through your authorizations for overtime and comp time. I never saw it identified who had the authorization. And I just wonder if that should be in the management rights.
Do you?
So did, Councilman Spickermeyer, can you clarify, did you see it in section 8 or you didn't see it in section 8 and you wonder if it should be in section 8?
No, I did not see it. I couldn't find it anywhere. I did a word search and it didn't come up with anything.
I will, in the interest of moving through, I will capture that and get back to you with that one.
Very good, thank you.
And Chief Reitmeyer, please, if you would share that with all the council members.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions in management rights?
Is it work schedule, I think you have one? Is that, I'm
Yeah,
trying
work
to,
schedule is one.
okay, so in there, is that, if I'm reading that correct, is that the one where it's kind of talking about, them not working too many hours for the safety of the employee? Or
I think that's an SOP, isn't it?
kind of between the hours
Working
of,
too many hours, like too many days, too many consecutive days on duty.
correct, yeah,
Yeah, that's in our SOP, 72 hours.
okay.
So it's not gonna necessarily be in the
Nope.
contract. There is a section about,
I think between the
Respite
17
time.
hours. Yeah, regular, no, okay, I think I would bring that on then. Oh, yeah, additional rest period time, is that what you're talking about?
Which
Yeah,
page,
there-
yeah, which page are you on?
there is an article regarding,
Section 3 of 8.
8.3,
Yes,
union right to negotiate.
no, sorry. You guys read the
What page number is quicker?
Mine doesn't, oh, 13, excuse me.
13.
It's
Thank
on
you.
the top, I'm used to seeing page numbers on the bottom.
Well, we're not there yet. We're not to that article.
I think I went ahead then, sorry. We can go back. I'll wait. I'll hold my question.
Put a pin in that.
I'll put a pin in that. I'll get back to you.
okay, so nothing else in management rights. What about, Article 9? Oh, go ahead, sorry. Oh,
I don't want to make the public comment, the expert witness, maybe?
Well, yeah, please,
Yeah,
the idea here is that
conversation. So to Councilor Spigmeyer's comment.
You're gonna have to speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here.
The
Yeah.
management rights generally has the ability to assign work duties as they see fit, which kind of is this overall broad catch-all to overtime and that kind of thing. We'll certainly, especially with all the kind of the markup with city manager or mayor and that kind of stuff, those are just all friendly amendments. And really the management rights generally catches that under that.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
generally,
Yeah.
an overtime or comp time would have to be at the approval of a supervisor who is approving time.
So
Yeah, and I think a lot of our, when it comes to overtime approval or comp time approval, that's done by our minimum staffing standards. And so you have a minimum staffing, that's, the duty chief is authorized to staff to that level. If they need to overstaff, then they contact the operations chief to authorize that. And then if we have event coverage, that's kind of authorized by the chief or the deputy chief. When that, like we have an MMA fight request for April right now, so that's a contract thing that we do with the casino, so we authorize that and then try to staff it.
good question.
Can they come to the table?
Huh?
Can they come to the table? Or do we didn't stay with this word?
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
You want us to come to the table?
So we're saying it's awkward, we're having to yell at you guys.
And then you don't
I
have to
don't
yell.
mind.
More of a discussion, but.
I'm here just to give history and
No, and I appreciate that, and I think in the interest of accuracy, if Tim can pipe in when I misspeak, because
Okay.
he's much more
And then
versed
you won't
than
be
I am on
behind
this.
me, so you can.
Yeah, then she doesn't have to stay on there with
oh my goodness.
the, or binder.
I don't want the head of the table. Right here. I'll sit next to you. How about that? So they're not staring at the back.
Chief Richie, you can come too.
I'm invited to this table, the big table.
Got a seat at the table.
The kid table.
That's the big kids.
All right,
I'll just prepare to look over your shoulder at the contract.
Article 9, grievance committee. Does that make sense to everybody regarding the grievance committee work?
Yes, I do have a question though. This
Yeah.
does not seem, this seems way more detailed than what's in the employee personnel manual. Is there a reason for that besides the union ask?
Idaho code. Yeah, Idaho code lays out quite a bit of what has to happen if it goes to fact finding and grievance. So this reflects what I think historically has been ironed out to work for the city.
Yeah, because I think it's fire's preference to have a grievance committee, right? And then you filter what grievances then move forward from the committee.
Yeah, so again, this has been it's a living document for the last 50 years. Some of it has come out of previous administrations where they felt that maybe some grievances shouldn't have ever brought forth. So we have a procedure in our own local to hear the grievance and say, you're full of junk, get out of here, we're not grieving that. And then we have a process that says, yeah, maybe something happened. So then we can go to the chief and discuss it with the chief, and the chief is like, yeah, that violated, and we'll make it right. It's pretty detailed because it tends to be a legal standing, legal document of being able to rectify if there was something that was grieved. And then there's some pretty specific and well drawn out timelines and things so everybody understands the timelines and the protocols and who to talk to and who not to talk to. I think in this one, brevity is not our friend, and we want to have something that's very specifically defined, I guess.
I prefer this version to the personnel manual. You have timelines, people know what to expect.
Right.
I wasn't criticizing it.
No, and I want to say that it benefits everybody involved to have it's clear and concise. So.
Well, and as far as the personnel policy, we don't go to mediation and arbitration. The mayor has overall authority.
No, just timelines.
Yes.
And the timeline, the nice part is it like Tim said, the brevity in it, and it also it allows for cooling off. And these are things where you have discretionary time, so everybody can get it out, look at it, and follow the procedure. So you have that roadmap to go on. It's really an SOP.
Yeah.
When it allows them to modify the period of time too, as long as it's agreeable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on grievance committee? Article 10 is wages. So they have a salary scale that's been agreed upon. And it includes annual step increases. And this article also has the cost of living adjustment that happens every year.
So the 3% is what they'll get just for their yearly bump, right,
Yep.
from their performance.
So,
Is that and is that always going to be 3%, or does it depend on the performance of the employee?
It's negotiated in this contract that it's 3% between steps. And if you look at the pay grade, you'll see that from step 1 to 2, 3 to 4 is 3 steps in between.
Okay.
So it's not a difference of getting 1.5 or 2. You get 3 as long as your work performance is satisfactory.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to complete a yearly and an annual before you're able. And if there's an issue with that, you can go into a disciplinary process and
And then it would be less
it would be
than that.
delayed. It would just be delayed.
Oh, okay.
And I'll
Yeah,
tell
you can go on to like a disciplinary probation.
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot better too with the implementation of NeoGov for the evaluations, and the mayor honestly holding the department director's feet to the fire about that when the step increases aren't going to be given if you don't have your evaluations done in time. So our people really do a lot better job working toward keeping timelines, and NeoGov helps us do that. So we've improved that process.
And I'll just make note that on the cost of living increase, the language regarding the CPIW is the same language that is in all the other contracts and what we use for non-represented as well.
Councilor Speckmeyer?
Yeah, thank you. Kind of a follow-up on that. I was just curious, I see there was 3 different guarantees. There's the cost of living, market adjustment, and yearly step. But how do you determine, I was curious why, like in the market adjustment, 1 year was 1%, then 2%, and then 1 back to 1. How's that determined?
So it's a minimum of 1% and a maximum of 2.5%. So depending on what the CPI ends up being from January, February, March, it could be, if it's at 0, they're guaranteed a 1%. If it's above 2.5%, they're guaranteed a 2.5%. So there's a minimum and maximum.
Mr. Mayor.
But I think,
Okay, thank you.
I think he asked about the market adjustment.
Oh, the market adjustment. Like, are you talking about this additional 1%?
Yes, the market adjustment.
So if I remember correctly, when we went into negotiations, we came up with a pay scale, but in order to move the pay scale further along year to year, we also moved it up 1% for every year.
Yeah, we do a competitive wage study before every negotiation, And we try to take like communities, like fire departments, like job function, and make sure that we're competitive with in our wages, not unsimilar to what we did with Mr. Mayor. And so I think what happened in our last negotiations, we found that we were about 12 to 15% low. And working with Mr. Marsh at the time, it was in the city's best interest to space those wage increases out, a 4% market adjustment to help bring us back up to comparable, and space it out so it was more affordable. We settled on 4% when we were 12 to 15% low because, quite honestly, we know what kind of economic crunch we're in, and we're not trying to bankrupt our city. But we'll do the same thing again. We'll do a wage comparison and then talk about where we're at in wages. Because really for us, we really want to be able to draw the best and the finest to our community for firefighters. And we don't want to lose them because it's very expensive to train firefighters, as the chief can attest to. We don't want to lose them to other communities where we train them up and get them going and then they shoot off to Seattle or Portland or other communities and take all that training money with them and all their learned abilities with them. And so we try to be competitive in the market so they stay here.
Are they, with that being in mind, are they held to some kind of like 90-day contract, like we trained you up, now you have to work here for a while, or is that not?
It's actually against the law.
Is it for that?
It's called
Okay.
indentured servitude.
Okay, well, I know like
Yeah.
like Schweitzer, if you go to college for something, you are held to a contract for a while for them, and so I didn't know.
Private sector can do that.
I
The
see.
14th Amendment, I believe, is what restricts us from doing that. Remember my legal class, right?
Put me on the spot.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I think the attorneys will have good
Yeah,
information.
no, that's fine. I was just by curiosity.
There you are.
If there's legal reasons, it's all right, I'm okay. I did have one last follow-up though. The salary advancements between ranks shall be 9%, is that, so anytime they get, am I understanding this correctly, anytime they get a promotion, they get a 9%? Plus the
So
three, or just the one?
Well, between steps, so if you go from engineer to captain, captain to battalion chief, there's 9% in between each of those steps.
Plus the 3% yearly thing?
Plus the
Well,
three-
Like, did they stack the three on it too?
It's two different things.
Yeah.
Like step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, that's 3% in between.
Okay.
Grades firefighter to engineer to captain, battalion chief, those are 9% between.
Oh, I see, okay.
And
So
so,
grades and steps.
yeah, so when the pay plan was prepared, we used firefighters to start and then moved the grades 9% up to each bump, to each promotional.
And and it was 10%. And during our wage study, we found that it's amongst our comparables, that it was actually there or more in the 9%. So we moved that back a little bit, and then included the comparable wages to get that equal balance of what to be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Speckmeyer, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did kind of follow up on that, your wage comparison. You guys do that locally or is that like a national deal that you work through?
I think that's part of the negotiation process. When ground rules are established, then each, per the contract, we'll see it later, each party has to prepare a wage study coming into negotiations. And then part of the ground rules is we'll set up that where the comparables are.
But I can tell you for this contract, it wasn't national, it was regional.
And was it
Yeah, we try not
public and
to,
private sector or just public?
generally public, we try to be as
Public,
close as
fire
we can
districts, and municipal.
to comparable, so we're comparable, because sometimes you get into the private sector, the wages are much, much higher, and that's not really fair to a public entity. And so we do our best to try to be as fair and even as we can to find like communities to be as close as we can.
That provide the same services.
Right, and within our market area, so, I don't expect that we're gonna lose firefighters to Florida or Texas, although we might because they wanna move there. But we could very easily, and we have lost firefighters to Pullman and Coeur d'Alene and down to Boise area in the valley. So we wanna be competitive with that market so we can retain those firefighters.
Do we do an exit interview?
Councilor, you need to speak up, please, it's
Sorry.
a public meeting here.
Do we do an exit interview when those folks leave to see if they would share any information as to why? Do we keep track of that information?
Yeah, we provide an exit questionnaire to every retired or separated employee for feedback.
we do an informal one within the department, but I think there's value to both. Sometimes people don't want to necessarily hurt feelings or something with the people they worked with. And that's why it's a huge value to HR doing it separately.
And we often get it after they've separated, so they can be a little bit more free in
candid
there.
if they want to.
Free in there.
I can tell you with the ones that we lost this year, one of the things that just killed us was life flight. Short of going and buying a helicopter, it's the coolest way to be a paramedic. I mean, what did you say?
Well,
They're the cool kids.
Well, they offer $25,000 sign-on bonuses.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
As
that's
opposed to-
for,
Yeah,
it's a life flight.
it's pretty impressive. But there's a lot of, again, like that public to private sector they have the ability to do a lot more than we do. So.
Councilor Speckelmeyer, did you have a question again?
Why does he just?
No, I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a follow-up. This is a 3-year bargaining agreement, I understand that. But I've also read that the city council can only make fiduciary promises and outlooks for 1 year. So have we looked into whether or not this is even legal under the Idaho Constitution to forecast out these kind of rates and increases for those second and third
Like the
years?
appropriation clause.
We can follow up with council about that.
Yeah, that's a good.
Just because I do think we need to protect that if, we've been sued before.
We
Let's
can't
try
do
to
anything
keep.
against the law on
Right.
purpose. I'm gonna try, but I don't think
Yes, I
there's.
would really prefer we not.
All right, and this section does include some additional paramedic pay that is reflected on the pay scale as well. And some additional benefits, including MERP, which is a medical reimbursement plan that the city contributes into for its employees.
Is that sort of like, what's that? One that,
HSA.
yeah, or FSA,
FSA.
that, the employees usually,
It's not accessible till you retire, however.
okay.
Yeah.
You
It goes
can't use it
in
just for-
pre-tax, and then once you retire, you can access it.
But
Yeah,
only for
reimburses you for
medical,
medical
Yep.
expenses.
for medical expenses after you.
Because of our Rule 80, we get to retire much earlier than Social Security a lot of times. So there's a big struggle for firefighters to make up insurance between 55 and 65. And so we have this plan that helps us buy insurance and able to market or through our health insurance trust.
At a reasonable price,
Yeah,
hopefully.
plan.
That phrase doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
And insurance,
Yeah, very,
That's a bummer.
very expensive. Any other question on wages or how they're paid? Okay. Hours. So this article is gonna cover their hours worked. They work a 56-hour work week, unless you're a 40-hour employee, which our inspectors are. There's 3 shift rotations. That doesn't mention in here, but there's 3
Yeah,
shifts.
It does.
Oh, it does, yeah. Okay. Any question on, was this your revitalization time?
I think that
Is
was
your question?
yeah, I think so. I think it was, and I think my city recognizes time as follows: 17 hours and 108 hours additional rest period between.
And part of that is they work 24-hour shifts.
Okay. It's just saying we're requiring that they get
Mhm.
this rest time, and I think that's necessary. I'm not disagreeing. I just want to make sure I read it right. Was what my,
And
that's
so
all I was asking.
it's been past practice. We've done that particular thing for a very long time. We just thought maybe we should write it down.
Yeah, no, that makes, what if in the event that, I don't know, someone calls out and you're short in staff, we still don't call these people until they have that rest
No,
period?
so this is for people who are on duty.
Yeah.
So there's emergency response.
Yeah.
There's like
So-
non-emergency work hours and emergency work. Basically, non-emergency work meaning station cleanup, rig, equipment checks, equipment repairs, things like that. So from 8 to 5, that's how that works. And after 5, we respond to calls. We're ready.
So it's rest time, but at work still.
Yeah, we're fully ready to go for any sort of emergency 24 hours a day, but from 8 to 5, like Chief Lucas said, that, we have job functions, clean rigs, make sure we're prepared, check the rigs, that kind of stuff. Train is a very big one, train for emergencies. But after 5 o'clock, then we expect our members to revitalize and try to be ready for, they have to get up at 2 in the morning to respond to a fire or to a medical, so they're ready to go.
So they send other paramedics and fire
No,
during that time?
No,
No.
we're
It's just
on
like you
duty.
go home from work, you sit in the chairs, but you might still have to wash the dishes. You're just there, you're just still ready to go, you know, call go out, that's your only responsibility at that point, is to get up and go.
So work assignments during that time, so during revitalization time is emergency response, servicing emergency equipment, incident reporting, and physical fitness. So those are the things that they can do during that revitalization.
I guess I read that as like, they had time to sit and actually just do nothing and relax for a while between the.
That doesn't happen very often.
I'm sure it does. Between calls, okay.
Yeah, between calls.
I did read that wrong.
So a lot of it is just worker protection for, sometimes we tend to mitigate this amongst ourselves, but sometimes we have an overzealous, brand new, say, captain who really likes to train, and his crews have had their guts worked out for 8 hours, and they're like, hey, let's go throw ladders and practice ladders in the dark because it's better to do it in the dark. And so, you know, we try to say, hey, you know, we need to have some revitalization time and some downtime just to protect against that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Go for 24 hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Any other questions in this Article 11? And I think the goal today is to try to get halfway through. Is that right, Mayor? So we're not gonna get through the whole thing. Okay. Article 12, leave. This is gonna address how much sick leave they earn. Is it still, it's 2,160? Not anymore though, right? Because it's bought down.
No, it was 2,160. We were at 2,880.
Oh, okay.
But since we work a 56-hour work week, we work basically a third more than 40-hour employees.
Yeah.
And we don't have the ability to be able to come to work with a broken hand,
Right.
where other employees may be able to work with. So we need a little extra sick leave incentive or a little extra sick leave to be able to do our job there. So that was where the 2,160 came from. So it's a third more than what's offered to the rest of the employees.
Well, and two, you guys don't have any, if I understand correctly, FMLA is not, it's not like there's a separate pay for FMLA. They would have to use, yes, FMLA is honored, but they'd have to use their leave to cover that time.
Yeah.
None of our employees
Yeah.
have received the paid FMLA.
Yeah.
Okay,
They use their accrued leave.
Yeah.
So.
that makes sense.
And then this article does also address sick leave when they retire or when they resign after a certain number of years. There is a sick leave incentive that's outlined in here. And it's different for the 40-hour work week versus the 56-hour work week employees. Are there any questions about that?
Wasn't there anyone here with in the event that they had to be out due to like a death in the family?
A bereavement?
Bereavement.
Did we get
Yeah,
that?
there's a
Okay,
bereavement
go ahead.
section.
Can I, before we go there?
Yeah, we don't have to do
ask a
it.
question
Yeah.
Sorry.
about sick leave. So when we say there's an incentive, you're telling people that if you don't get sick, you get an incentive, or is it that we want you to be healthy your entire career and you need to take a day off when you need it?
I like the philosophy on that. I really
Just
do.
wondering.
You know, there's always a happy medium to using your sick leave because it's a benefit that you need to bank, because we always encourage our young members to bank because you don't know. We had a member who celebrated his first set by going to the trampoline park and immediately blowing out his knee. And now he's not able to work and he doesn't have any sick leave. So we always encourage everybody to bank as much sick leave as possible. And to encourage that, we try to incentivize it. We don't encourage people to come to work sick, and we don't encourage people that need a mental health day to not take a mental health day. So, but there's always that happy medium. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Well, no, I think safety plays a part in that.
100%.
Maybe we encourage them not to go to trampoline parks on the days off.
Well, there's some peer
Yeah.
education that goes on.
Right.
I think one of the things that's really interesting to note in the last 5 years, there's been a transition in the fire service, and I think in all jobs, especially blue collar jobs, where people they're kind of tough by nature and they're rugged, and it's kind of like, hey, suck it up, buttercup, get to work, you know. And then COVID came along. We said, hey, don't come to work with a cough. You're getting everybody sick. It's going to be still a couple more years, I think, before we can really look at some data before and after and how our behaviors have changed. At the same time, in the American Fire Service, we've seen a disturbing trend in suicides, and mental health treatment and awareness has become a big deal. So we're starting to look at those kinds of things. So it's a new generation, a new cultural change, and we're kind of figuring it out as we go. So the old, you're abusing sick leave, are you? Or did you need to use it? And more importantly, are you using the other benefits that are available? You know, if you need mental health services, we have a peer support team that's forming up right now, and they're just about ready to kind of formally launch. And that's what that's all about, is reaching out to somebody else and getting you the services you need so that you don't end up in a position where you decide to take your own life.
That's, leads me to my next question. Does the city or anything under the bargaining agreement, do we have an employee assistance program that is purchased through an insurance, which the EAPs typically have mental health available and the multiple visits? Is that something?
We do, we have an employee assistance program. Our health insurance also has an MD Live telehealth behavioral health component. And then our plan itself does cover mental health visits, so.
And part of the training, that when we talk about union training, we do peer support training, so we do where we send our members off, and it's a union initiative, but we teach them counseling strategies for peers, because we find that firefighters like to talk to firefighters. And so I'm a peer support specialist, and there's a couple other members who are peer support specialists, and that's part of that union training hours that we've used to get those people to that sort of training. And the chief and I had discussions about trying to make sure that still contains and happens. But when you talk about union training hours, it's not just learning how to be a union person. I think most of our leadership in fire service in general tend to come out of the leadership of the union. So it's just really good leadership training too. So.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. All three of our current battalion chiefs were union presidents in their back career.
Yeah. And the incentive does go to that medical expense reimbursement plan. So
Yeah, and it's not
a
an
cash,
hour per hour, it's a percentage.
Yeah, it's a
and-
percentage,
yep.
yeah, into that mark.
So I think, to your point, though, we're walking a line, we're trying to walk that right line, not incentivizing people to not take their time. You want them to have their time off and balance their lives, but you also want them to come to work.
Right. It's a balance between entitlement and accountability.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I would say, in today's generation, it's different, because our newer.
It's a good word, different.
It's but you know, our firefighters who tend to be more purposeful towards their families, and sometimes we see them using sick leave for their kids, and where maybe the older generations didn't. So it's a learning process.
Some of their wives might have stayed home though.
You know, I was gonna say,
I'd be able to stay
as
home.
we're sitting here with, you know, three women who work and contribute, you know what it's like. And it's like, so it's this discussion that you coin toss, who's gonna stay home and take care of the kid?
Yeah.
And my generation, that was not a question.
Yeah.
All right, so this article does also address, let's see, off-the-job injury, illness, modified duty, workers' comp on the job benefit, bereavement leave. Somebody, did you have a question about bereavement leave?
Yeah, I just was curious, cause I know some jobs lay it out specifically, so like when you put a request in, it's actually labeled just as bereavement leave, and it's put, so I don't know if there's a purpose we don't have it laid out that way, or just kinda curious our thoughts on that.
Well, they have bereavement leave, they have 3 shifts, which is the same as other employees have 3 days. So how do you mean laid out?
Oh, I guess when they put it in, does it come out of their regular like the regular sick, or does it come out of special?
It's its own.
Oh, it is its own category,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That
it's
makes
its own leave. And then if they needed additional time,
Then
they could take sick leave.
Okay, that answers my question for that one.
Should we do a couple more, Mayor, or do you want, okay. Does anybody have any more questions on 12? We move on to Article 13 is vacation. So this is gonna address how much vacation they earn, and when they can use it, how it gets paid out when they're separated. They get paid out for what vacation they have, if they were to leave employment. How about Article 14, holidays? So they do receive holidays. They are paid out 1 holiday per month because they're not always gonna have the holiday off, obviously. So they receive 1 holiday per month.
does this mean, the way I read it, so 40-hour employees shall not receive holiday pay when a holiday occurs on a day which is not regular work day? Is that considered like a weekend?
So the way it kind of works in the fire service, the 40-hour employees, they just get the day off, like anybody else would. So if it's Memorial Day Monday, you get Monday off. With firefighters, because they obviously can't have the day off, there's two schools of thought usually that you'll see. One is that they get paid in the pay cycle that holiday happened. And then others, they group it up for the whole year and you get a holiday pay once a year. You get all your holidays paid on one check.
No, like, but we're paying them that extra amount for
They
working.
get paid, and it's a formula in there.
Yeah, they take like the 2,080 hours.
They don't get 24 hours of extra pay.
Their annual salary.
They get a bump representing holiday pay that day.
Okay.
Yeah, so like our police contract, they get paid one lump sum for holidays once a year, and then fire, they get, instead of that, they get one every month.
No, the fire gets one lump sum.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we get one.
Oh, okay, but one for every month.
Second paycheck in October.
Okay, that makes sense. It was a little different than obviously a regular 40-hour employee, they just get that double overtime or whatever, so I was trying to understand that.
And then, so it's their annual salary divided by 2,080.
That makes sense.
Is a regular, okay. So, oh, go ahead.
Counselor Spiegelmeier has his hand up.
Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Yes, I had a question, and Chief, you kind of hit on it, about the 40-hour employees. It doesn't specify when they'll take those days off, those holiday days. Do they follow the federal in lieu of holidays, or, you just said they'd take if a holiday was on Monday, they'd take Friday off, but
Yeah,
there's no rule or dated in here.
They follow the same as the exempt employees in our office, the non-reps. So if like a Monday, we take Monday off. If Monday, if somebody worked 4 10s and Monday was their regular scheduled day off, then they would take Tuesday off on their regular scheduled day to acknowledge Monday was the holiday. But we follow the normal holidays, and it's spelled out in the city holidays.
Okay, but it's not listed in the contract.
No, so Counselor, there's a lot of clarifying language in our standard operating procedures. So where there's some vagueness in the contract, we allow the fire chief to be able to develop his own standing operating procedures to say, as far as scheduling his 40-hour employees, that they work the 410, please correct me if I'm wrong. It allows him to make sure we have coverage for inspectors and be able to run his operations, but still allow the ability for him to make those decisions. If we put it in the contract and then it gets hard for him to operate the department. If you have 2 inspectors off on this Tuesday, then there's nobody to do inspection services. Where if you had 1 inspector off on the Tuesday and then you gave the other inspector off a Friday, then it allows the operations to flow a little more smoothly. It takes it out of that contractual language where he has to follow the contract because it says it. If you put it in an SOP, it can be adjusted and we can decide on how it works. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying.
Okay, thank you. Some people don't.
Clear's one.
Okay, Article 15, overtime. Spiegelmeier, I think, had a question about overtime. I don't know if it was addressed in this section.
Well, get me a chalkboard.
I got a question.
Yes.
For the ones
So,
that
uncompensated by sick leave or vacation shall be counted towards hours worked. So that means that, like, if you have a vacation on like on Wednesday, and those are your hours that you took off, and then it goes past, and then you end up on overtime because even though you didn't actually work over 40, your normal work hours, it still counts as overtime, whatever extra. So wouldn't that incentivize for people to like use a vacation day like in the middle of their shift so that, or their normal shift, so that they'd have that time and a half of overtime for the rest of their work week?
There's some concerns that could happen, that it really gets mitigated with firefighters because it's not like it was my job, so I took the day off, so then I would have to work another day to get my work done. You taking a vacation day doesn't mean that there's gonna be overtime for you waiting at the end of that. What it acknowledges is you used your leave bank up during that period of time, you're still eligible for the overtime, should it come to you. The way our overtime's assigned is not one for one to that person that caused the overtime. So that's something that's watched by our industry pretty closely. There's some good legal cases out there that were high profile where people were abusing that. And so we make sure that doesn't happen.
And the way our schedules work, it's very weird because way back when the FLSA was written, firefighters worked lots of hours. And then they decided that we weren't gonna work more than 40 hours without overtime. But if we did that with the firefighters, it would cost lots of municipalities a lot of money because they all work 56 hours. So they came up with a weird, dumb number of 53 hours that you can work in a work week without being paid overtime. So where our shifts work out to be 56 hours, we get 3 hours of overtime every week just because of how the shifts work and the law. And so if we were to take vacation, then we would actually lose pay by taking vacation. We wouldn't be made whole. So by allowing those as hours worked, we're made whole for all the hours that we were supposed to work. So it's kind of
That's a good explanation.
I do have a question on the 40-hour employee overtime. Department of Labor's wage and hours. Everything I've read has said that it's in a week, but this states that if they go over 80 in a pay period, I'm a little confused because is that still something that you guys get a variance or through the Federal Department of Labor that?
So I'm not sure if the inspectors fall under the 7K exemption. I'll defer to our HR specialist because I'm not sure if they do or not. The 7K exemption is the exemption in the FLSA standard that allows us to work 56 hours or 53 hours.
I don't think they do, and I think it's 80 hours in a 14-day period.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And is it either or? Is it 40 and 7 or 80 and 14?
we look at it as a week, like we
Yeah.
look at it as any hours worked over 40 a week.
Yeah, it's noon Friday to noon Friday.
So that's something that I have to address.
And so, yeah, if that's the way, that makes me feel better. The language just confused me as to maybe people might not be getting overtime that they should. So that's good clarification. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, we pay them as a matter of practice. We're paying them if they worked, they had an investigation in the middle of the night, they came in for 5 hours, they get paid that 5 hours of overtime, regardless. I mean, they don't flex their time. We don't allow them to flex time to say, okay, I'll take 5 hours off, I'll come 5 hours later tomorrow morning. It's like, no.
That's not very good practice by wage and hour.
Yeah, no, we'll pay you the overtime.
Frowned upon. Yeah, okay.
So I think the mayor's ready to move on to the next agenda item, but we'll come back at our next meeting and we can discuss if there's any other overtime questions.
Yeah, and I think that allows council time to, read it again. I mean, I had to read it a few times, to try to understand it, but, bring some more questions back, because we're gonna do this again soon.
And I think, President Thompson made the offer, and I'll make the offer as well. If you have questions in the meantime, please shoot them to us, and then we'll make sure we have that information prepared, and so that we're not violating any communication trains or whatever. We'll share that information with everybody, because one person has a question, probably everybody can benefit by the answer. I have scheduled vacation the next meeting, unfortunately. Chief Lucas will be here to answer questions, and I don't want to commit. Tim will be here. There we go.
And thank you so much for including me in the conversation.
Yeah.
The collaborativeness is great, and it's kind of neat to have you guys take interest in our contract, where council in the past haven't, and so it's nice to be able to explain to you the why behind a lot of things, so I appreciate it.
Cool.
I need this explained, so. Well, we plan to start negotiations February 20th. It is open meeting, so council, you're welcome to attend those. February 20th. Yep. You're welcome to attend their open meeting, so if you're interested in the negotiation conversation.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Mayor, I need this to be my. Also sitting. That was easier.
Like, what, a little bit more conversational.
Do you not have any yell? Yell louder.
I don't have to have my back to Tim.
Sorry.
I don't have to have my back to Tim.
It's some kind of an awkward.
Yeah. Do you feel like you need to move it down?
Councilor Spicklemeyer, we're gonna move on to, agenda item 4B. And Councilor Lickey had to step out for a minute. United Airlines minimum revenue guarantee, discussion and consideration of the request to provide a minimum revenue guarantee to United Airlines for the 2024 fiscal year, providing direction to Mayor Johnson and city staff regarding such request. This is an action item. And I guess what I would like to do, I think we were all present, all the councilors were present at a separate meeting, a joint meeting with the county at the airport recently, and we heard a presentation from the board on the MRG program and United's service to Lewiston. And I think the one thing that we don't have, the question we don't have answered yet, at least to my knowledge, is what an agreement would look like. So our legal staff has been working with us on that closely. And so I would like to call on them, maybe if they could just give the council a quick update where we are with the agreement. Or you can tell me if this is something that we need to pursue further, but to give the mayor and the council a direction to draft that agreement. But as of right now, we don't have one.
Sure. Kayla Herman, city attorney. And I think that's what we would be looking for from council today, is if there is interest from council to pursue such an agreement. The structure at this point, we believe, would most likely look like a direct contract for air services between the city and United. So if council discusses and that's the direction that you want us and Mayor Johnson to move forward with such an agreement, negotiate such an agreement, and then bring it back to city council for review and formal consideration, we would be happy to do that and work with our partners on that too. So at this point today, that's the direction we would be looking for from you. But you're free to discuss the specifics if you have additional questions at this point.
Okay, councilors? Questions coming, Councilor?
I had some questions. So with the last agreement that we had with United, that the county paid for, that $4 million broken up into 3 years. What's to stop them from moving the flight again? Like, would there be a guarantee that they wouldn't do that? So we could, we're basically leaving ourselves exposed to United, messing with us and making us pay $4 million instead of the 160-some thousand.
Counselor, you're asking your council members, or who are you wanting to ask that question of?
One of our airport authority board members that did the presentation. Whoever would be most fit for the answer.
I can speak to that. Mike Isaacs, airport director. The airlines are very much not willing to put a specific time down, like a 5:05 departure where they're stuck at, because you're one piece of a myriad of different.
Councilor Spicklemeyer, can you hear Mike?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
So they require the ability to move flights to a 5:07 or a 5:49 if they need to. What's important, I think, to identify is that it's a RON flight, it remains overnight. That means the plane is on the ground, it sleeps at Lewiston Airport, and the first flight out is going to be yours. And if it's at 5 or 6, that's their call. But that's the critical piece that I think we need to ensure is that it remains overnight.
So to her question, that RON piece could be in the contract, not the specific flight time.
I requested it this afternoon when we discussed that, but I have not heard back if it's considered a flight time or if it's, we need more clarification.
I think too, were you kind of referring to as that we could go into this contract and they can decide to leave and go to a different airport or like not provide services?
Just back to the same like they did with the last contract that we had with them. They could put us midday and then we could end up with that 55% capacity again.
Are you looking for an answer?
I mean, is it gonna be in a contract that they can't just leave if we put all this money on the table?
No, in the contract, it specifies 90 days notice that they can get out. It's very much a one-sided contract. All these MRGs are very one-sided.
And they leave with that rest of that whole sum of money or?
No, they would just go for, they bill by the month.
By the month, okay.
And then they invoice quarterly. That's the industry standard. That was the piece that was missing in the draft that I sent you, was that component.
That helped, because I thought we were doing one big lump sum, here you go. So that helps.
We wanted to go away from that. That's what we did the first time to land in here, but now we wanted to see what it's gonna take to be successful. Is this viable? Let's see how it looks in a year from now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's where this MRG spells it all out.
Mm-hmm. And then, sorry, follow up, you were talking about airlines, I kind of came in at I think the tail end of that conversation, we were talking about a new airline, is that, they're requesting that we have a better airplane that's going? I thought you were talking about an aircraft particularly that
For
we're
the
trying to.
aircraft, yes, yeah, that, exactly. They're phasing out these older 50-seat jets for the newer jets. And we had hoped to have an option for you to say, look, we can move into this newer jet now with this price versus that price, having a couple options to weigh. With the way the MAX 900 debacle is happening right now with Boeing's new aircraft, United has a whole bunch of those that are grounded. So they're taking all their E175s, which are the 70-seat jets, and backfilling them with those other routes. So right now, all we're looking at is the 50-seat jet for this year.
And they provide that, correct, the aircraft? United does, we don't, okay.
Councilor Spickelmeyer?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess a question for Mike. So on our last meeting, you mentioned it's a 1-year contract we'd be signing, and what is the payment? How does that payment schedule work?
So it's based on the number of people that get on the plane by day. They look at how the profit for each flight. So it costs X amount of dollars in gas and pilots and maintenance. So if you have 55% of that plane full, you pay quite a bit. Although we haven't generally have many days like that at all. The caveat, the difference, I'm able to provide you a monthly load factor.
Okay.
I guess for clarification, Mike, I meant to say when the payments would be made.
Oh, they would be quarterly. So the first one would happen pretty soon. But they are quarterly.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Schroeder?
Thank you. So I think I just heard you say that you can provide us with the data on a monthly basis so that we can project?
I wish I could. I do not have the day-to-day load factor counts. I can get the monthly at the end of the month, so I can get it about 2 weeks after. But the monthly does not follow the day-to-day load factors. That's so Tuesdays, we had, for example, 50% of the plane full on a Tuesday. And then on Saturday, Sunday, we had it full, overload. Well, you would, in an average, you would say, well, that's 60 to 75%. Well, it's not. It's, you paid 50%. They weigh each flight on whether or not it's at that percentage and determine that down to each particular flight for every day. That's a lot of data that I'm not able to get. At least I'm not getting right now, not to say we can't get it. We do have the ability to audit all their records.
So, I'm assuming we've talked to, sorry, Mr. Mayor, not sure if we went formal. We've talked to we've mentioned Pocatello. I'm assuming they have given us information on how this has worked for them. And we've read those contracts to maybe compare how we go after the one we're trying to get. Is that something we've done? I mean, I know the airport authority lawyer is reviewing everything, but I think for me to just, I mean, obviously we don't expect you to give us a daily report of load, but just to know that there's somebody out there that's been doing this and that they can give us maybe that outlook for the council. Cause I'm hearing the apprehension and are we gonna get hit with something after the fact? And I think that there's ways to mitigate that. Is there?
Yeah. So in the case of Pocatello and all those, Delta instead of United, so they look a little bit different, each one's different. Gary Foss from Arkstar is he's 25 years in American Airlines, and he shared with me that he actually designed a template for MRGs that's still being used to this day in American and was shared with Delta. So he's published over 200 of these MRGs himself. So he's very, very familiar with how they work, which lends to our negotiating abilities quite well. They have that experience, but all the MRGs, whether it's a 9-page or a 29-page, they heavily favor in the airlines. They control the cards in it. That's just the way those contracts are.
And you're saying United, if we did not go into this contract, is basically like we won't provide air service to the city of Lewiston.
With 100% certainty, and they won't come back.
So I just wanna get it straight. So they messed up and moved their flight midday, and now we have to pay for it.
No, they didn't mess up. They were forced to move it because they didn't have enough pilots. They fly with a lot of different moving pieces in their operation, and they had no choice but to do that. Or take bigger cities and move it there, so that's what they do. And that's where we ended up with what we did. It's been successful when it's not hot outside, but it has hurt us in the summertime for sure.
Yeah, that's just.
They do take ownership in that though. That was one of the first.
Introduce yourself.
The Gary Peters Airport Authority Board. When we started this negotiation, that was our immediately first question. Well, you own a little bit of this, that we had heavier loads because we know the performance of the 200 is better in cold weather. But it's a pilot-driven problem, like we explained on Monday. To add a RON flight, it takes 10 additional pilots. So for them, when they're just trying to get coverage, during COVID, and when we launched the flight, or kind of right as we're coming out of COVID, they had to move us to an afternoon flight so that plane could overnight. And then you have maintenance intervals that those planes have to hit every 2 days, and we're not a facility to handle that kind of maintenance inspection. So now that plane may have overnighted in Salt Lake or Denver or Boise or Seattle or something. They have to hit those checks every 2 days in order to be, so I'm sure by moving that checked that box also. So a lot of what we're getting out of this MRG is that RON. I mean, that's where I place the value personally, is having the RON in the early flight. And like we talked Monday, that's what's gonna make it work more for our business community. And not only getting people out of here, but getting them in here. You can put a full shift in on the East Coast. Now you can hit those lake banks and come in because the jet is going to overnight. So that's the real value we feel in the contract is the RON.
Councilor Spickelmeyer?
Sorry.
Yes, thank you. It was mentioned that to make this successful, I guess this is for that we'd need some aggressive advertising. I'm just wondering, does the airport they feel adequate funding to provide this, marketing to help this succeed?
We spent $100,000, we budgeted $100,000 this year. We've spent $100,000 this year on marketing to launch Seattle. So we would certainly have to add additional dollars to the United route. Yep,
So your 100,000 is to date?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
With this is adding more flights options, right, or choices, I should say, with having United, are we gonna have more flights available with doing this, correct?
We will.
And which then, I'm assuming affects the price even more so, because the more flights you have, the more options for.
It gives you 3 options to get to your destination instead of maybe 1 or none or an overnight in a lot of cases. If you're trying to get to the East Coast, you have to spend the night somewhere if you're leaving at noon. By the time you make your connection, it's too late to get there and you have to spend the night. So here in the morning, you have several options once you get to Denver, going to the same destination. They have 500 departures a day just in United themselves. So yeah, there'll be a lot more opportunities, a lot more flights with a morning flight.
I would assume with more flights too, with not people being filled up as fast, you would possibly have more options for maybe better pricing. You know, because if they're not all filling up, sometimes they'll get better prices to try to fill up the plane. Okay.
Question, do we know when the flight would be starting? That wrong flight?
Initially, a 5:05 a.m. departure.
Oh, I mean like at like day, like they could be like, oh, we're not gonna do the wrong flight until the summertime.
Oh, I think it would be within, yeah, it'd be pretty quick. I think they have to push it out 3 or 4 weeks before, because they've already scheduled it. So they sold tickets, so they have to wait and push those out and make some changes for the people that booked 4 months in advance. They're gonna have to get them booked anyways. Yeah, it would be really quick from upon signing the contract.
With the $83 million tourism revenue that we talked about, how much is that? Is that talking the airport takes that fund in, or is that overall citywide?
That was a Department of Commerce number that came from Idaho Tourism.
Okay, so they're talking about like our city brings.
Yeah, exactly. In this region, it brought in $83 million.
I see. And do you feel if we didn't have these flights coming in that we might take a hit on that revenue?
I know we will.
No.
Just United alone carrying, they carried 47% of our passengers last year, well, using 2019 data, and that was 82 million in economic impact just for the airport alone. And so if you figure their percentage, United with new data, it's about $25 million of economic return per year just with United.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what a $4 million worst case scenario investment brings back to the community, is almost $25 million per year.
The cruise ship industry uses United heavily because most of those folks come from the east and south. So they get the lion's share of cruise ship folks.
Sorry, so did I hear you say that the cruise lines are using the majority, that's providing the majority of that 47%?
United uses, of all the cruise ship passengers that fly in, United gets the majority of them.
I see what you're, okay, all right.
Yeah, more people are able, they live closer to Denver, that connection, so they naturally try to fly through Denver.
Do you have an approximate, what percentage the cruise lines are affecting the 47% that United is doing? Just
I
a
don't,
guesstimate.
it's hard to say who's flying on which particular, town of the data that you're asking for, but,
I didn't know if you already shared
21,000.
that or something, okay.
Some days it's over 90%, we know that, when you've got 100 and some people getting off the buses up there. Half on United, half on Delta.
I have a question on the last year. I happened to be in the airport picking up a passenger when they had to remove over 13 people off the plane. It was not a fun site to be involved in. I tried to do my best to get out of people's way. I'm sorry I couldn't do more. When we talk about you've spent $100,000, but you also talked on Tuesday that you put in some expense to rectify those situations, even when we technically didn't have to. It wasn't our decision. It was a standard procedure for that plane in the heat. Are we looking at, when we talk about marketing dollars and having availability to up that, I see if we have that early morning flight, you're not gonna have those expenses you did last summer, correct? So that some of those dollars could be moved, we're not gonna need to adjust as much.
True.
Another question. So if our loads do better than that 87%, is there a possibility that the contribution amount would be less than 618,000?
Yes, that's just a scale, so it's down to probably the 100th of percentile. So depending on how many passengers get on the plane, it'll change that.
Okay, so it could go above that.
Yep.
So basically, the airport's saying, we're taking a risk, we wanna guarantee that this is a good investment on United, and so we want you to go into this contract to give us that peace of mind.
I think just to note, again, from Monday as a reminder, not our words, but last Friday, Pullman, the article in the Lewiston Morning Tribune is, we've been trying to land the Denver flight for 10 years. They want this flight, make no mistake about it. They announced they had it 3 different times. We're starting Denver service. They announced they had the service. That airport was built around taking this flight to go east, and we took it away from them. So it's very competitive. It won't, if we choose not to support this and go after it, they'll have service here. It just won't be at our airport.
So, before I ask what the motion can be, because I'm gonna just say right now, I can't make a motion or a vote in the affirmative of saying I will approve a contract I haven't seen. So we're gonna need some instruction on what that looks like that you guys can take back. But been thinking about the impact. I did reach out to Clearwater Paper, CCI Spear. I did hear back, and I think that was shared from Clearwater Paper. To me, that's a huge impact, but I deal with the healthcare system on a personal level. My veteran father has been through the ringer, had to use Lifeline more than once. We have been chosen, right? We now have an airplane as opposed to just the helicopter. If our airline continues to fail, we would lose that airplane, right? If we went down to no airline, Delta, because we say we're not committing to this, and so United pulls, now Delta's like they're not committed, and whatever happens, Lifeline can't just take off on a runway unless we're running an airport, correct?
Correct.
And to me, that's a huge impact because we're not attracting doctors. And so when a tragedy occurs, when a complex medical issue occurs and needs to be acted fast upon, that plane up there means a lot to our elderly population who are residing in nursing homes and in their own homes. And so for me, that's a huge, emotional or not, I think that when you look at our residents, we need medical care. So for me, that was a huge, I'm willing to take and do the work though. When I say that we're taking a risk, we still have work to do. And we have the ability to market these flights as well. Mike can make an ad, we can share it on our social media, we can partner in that way, and so can the county. So I guess anything we do, we're writing checks, we're the stewards of money, but I would like to see that we have an amenity that provides that service when you can't even get a neurology appointment a year out. But if you had a traumatic brain injury, that airline can get you to a hospital that has one on staff. And I think that means a lot, or should, so.
Councilor Spickmeyer?
Yes, thank you. I guess for the airport, those numbers that you had listed were for the 50 passenger plane. Have you run those numbers with the 70 passenger plane to see what our, say if we were at 85%, what the cost would be?
No, we have not received any, we don't even know the baseline of what the 75 seat jet would cost, so we wouldn't have that ability.
We thought we were going, to have that. I mean, the E175 has been part of this discussion for a few months now. And like I say, we think it's just a product of the MAX 9 issues being grounded. And you can see where, you know, Pullman has lost all but one flight a day because Alaska and United are the only two operators of that MAX 9 plane. So they've had to steal their 175s to fill their mainline routes. And I'm sure United had to do the same thing because the E175 was part of the discussion until 2 weeks ago. And I think it will come back. I think it will be part of the discussion prior to this contract expiring. I think the 175 will come back on the table personally. And, you know, we'll be back talking to you again.
So is there anything in the contract that would take effect if they pulled flights?
Councilor, you cut out. We didn't hear the
I heard
question.
full flights, that's all I got out of that.
If they pulled flights, if they couldn't provide the flights, would that help our numbers? Would they reduce it, or would we still be stuck with the numbers no matter not if they had the flight or not?
I don't quite understand.
I think he's saying if a flight is canceled,
Yeah, is it
are
on them
we
or
on the
us?
hook for that flight not occurring and they're not getting, they're making an adjustment?
Yeah, I would think it would just wash out, to be honest with you. I don't see how you could come up with a load factor if the flight didn't occur.
Not burning fuel.
Yeah,
What if they have to empty?
for mechanical.
Check the 13I.
Let me see if our city attorney has any comments or questions for us at this time.
I don't have a response on that piece.
Kayla Herman, city attorney.
Kayla Herman, city attorney, but I was going to respond to Councilor Lidkey's question, if that's okay.
Please, yeah.
So today we are not asking council to approve a contract for signature because we don't have a final contract for signature. But I think what we'd be looking for is if council's direction is we want you and Mayor Johnson to invest time and resources to, you know, basically put this contract together and work with our partners and bring it back to us based on the proposal that you received and those amounts, then we would know to move forward and do that and bring that back to you for formal consideration shortly.
And do you feel that that is enough? Because that's not, if that's a direction to staff, right? So we're not appropriating money.
No.
I'm not hearing any of that. Is that enough to go back to United and get the contract drawn up? You guys, airport people.
I think if the city has decided that they are going to make the financial commitment, then yes, you know, it's hard to go negotiate a contract not knowing if the money's going to be there. You know, that's kind of the position we're in with negotiating with United. As long as we know the city is willing to fund it, then, you know, puts us in a little better spot to negotiate, to be honest with you, as well.
Okay, so this, just because I don't have the number in front of me, the motion could be that we would direct staff to work towards a contract that would not spend more than, I think it was somewhere around 4.1 million in 1 year. Would that be the motion that would suffice?
Yes, so the direction could be directing staff to negotiate an agreement with United based on the proposal submitted. And then I'll tell you that we will, you know, push this to the top of the list if that's council's desire, and we will work diligently to try to bring you back something as soon as we could. But there wouldn't be a formal commitment of, yes, we agree to spend $4 million today because we don't have a contract for you to approve today.
And I do have a question, I think you answered it, but let's just review it one more time since we're talking. The 4 million plus, that's today's price. But if they bring on the bigger plane, is that going to change, or can it be subject to change, or can we contract it that it does not change?
It would certainly change, because all the costs for that aircraft are different from the one that they're proposing.
So this is only an estimate.
No, this is for the 50-seat jet. This is,
Oh, it is for the fifth, that's what I wanted to
Yes.
know. It's, we might have this other one for a while, but its pricing is for the.
This is for the existing plane, the 50.
The 50,
If
okay.
the 70 comes
Okay.
online, then it would change.
I'm sorry, that is what I wanted to know.
Would we renegotiate then?
I believe so. That's how I would interpret, because we were, like I said, we would have two options for you
At that time?
up until 2 weeks ago. Then all of a
Oh,
sudden,
I see.
175 just came off the table because they don't have any to offer at this point. If the FAA ungrounds the MAX 9s and that works itself out, I wouldn't be surprised when we come back and say, hey, the 175 upgrade is now available and here's what it would cost, here what we could do an amended contract. You know, what does that look like? We just can't, we don't know what that looks like today.
And I think we need to remember that the contract can, although one-sided, we can put in there some protections to make sure that we are looking at those changes. Because, again, if it's quarterly payments, I'm assuming that if they give us 90-day notice, that's it. Before that year's out, we pay for that last 90 days and we're done, right? So I think it would work the same if there's, and we talked about efficiencies of the 175 could make it, the price better for us. Because the load is, it's 75 seater, 79, I can't remember.
Still a good variable to bring to the public, so they can listen to that.
I mean, the CRJ 200s are going away, make no mistake. Delta phased them out a month ago. They're on their way out at United. They just can't take delivery of 175s fast enough. So you're in a sense buying time, to be able to make that upgrade and take the 175, which we desperately would love to have. Denver's a long flight from here. That's why they experience the problems in the summer with the loads, because they have to take on so much fuel because it's a long haul for that airplane. So the 175 is obviously what we're using for Salt Lake and Seattle, and it's just a lot more airplane. It's a lot nicer airplane.
Well, I'd be comfortable with you making that motion that you
I'm sure you would.
You want some language?
Well, you had practice.
She said you came up with it.
You had practice.
I'm still gonna make Kayla do it for me.
Counselor, if you make a motion to, I would request that you give myself and staff a date when you would like to bring that MRG agreement to council. And because sometimes gonna be required, the next meeting, available meeting would be Monday, January 29th, or is that a Monday?
22nd is our next meeting.
That's,
No, we do have an extra.
that's that's a day and a half working day.
It might be too soon, I'm just saying that's our regular meeting,
Late.
22nd, and then a special meeting on the 29th.
Our next meeting will be the 29th. Is that too late?
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, but we have to do this before the end of the month, that's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's.
I don't think, Counselor, if you included your motion the 22nd, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Right.
We're not gonna have.
I already vetoed the 22nd. And I will be on Zoom, and I would prefer to be here in person and take our lashings. Do you want a number?
You take your accolades.
Yes, what did I say?
I thought you said lashing.
I might have, it's been a day, I apologize.
Like, that's not.
Do you want, not to exceed?
Full already.
Well, I guess I need to ask Kayla a quick question here. If we receive a motion to draft an MRG, negotiate an MRG agreement with United Airlines and bring it to the January 29th meeting, and then if we find out that we can do that sooner, Can we go ahead and change that date and say move it up to the 25th and just schedule that?
I would think so, as long as council would be okay with that.
Yeah, because 29th would
That's kind
hopefully
of
give us
close.
enough time to get it done, but if we get it done sooner, then we'll just schedule a special meeting and get it over with.
Yeah, I think if we just have direction from council to try to negotiate an agreement and bring it back this month,
Yeah.
then that gives us the flexibility.
This is gonna be a wing dinger.
Well, what if we had problems with, what if it came in the 29th and we had problems with, like some counselors had a problem with it and we wanted to revisit the contract? Wouldn't that not give us enough time to make the deadline for what they're expecting to see United, or am I misunderstanding?
Well, Counselor, with all respect, I don't think you or I are gonna move the contract. I think United is probably gonna tell us this is the way it is, and we like it or we don't.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I've learned over the last, few weeks on this. And so we just have to kind of, trust that they're a good operator, I guess, that they're gonna keep their
Trust me,
word
there's been a lot of back and forth to get to this point.
and honor the contract. I don't know what else we have at this point.
Okay.
That's just my sense of it.
We feel confident that.
I did have one question. Because Amy Gordner, city treasurer, is here, so, just wanting to make sure, I guess we would have, clarity as to where the money might come from, or if that question, okay.
Discussion on the motion.
Okay, sorry, I skipped ahead. I don't think that
You go
necessarily
down.
needs to be part of the motion, I just, so we would know numbers wise.
Right.
To have.
If you wanna talk about it now, I just figured we make the motion, if somebody seconded, that could be clarified in that discussion, but we can do it now. I had the motion, if we delay any longer, I'm gonna lose it again, so I'll
fine
just
moving
vote.
See if you didn't read your motion, see
Read
if
your
you get a
motion.
second.
Get it over
Alright.
with.
Not from Tim or John, though. It has to be from somebody
I
at
haven't
the table.
seconded anything from that.
I'm gonna move to direct Mayor Johnson and city staff to negotiate a minimum revenue guarantee agreement with United Airlines for the city council's consideration to be discussed on the regular meeting of January 29th or sooner.
Second. Do I have to look the the motion?
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Licky, seconded by Councilor Horstman to direct Mayor Johnson's staff to negotiate a minimum revenue guarantee agreement with United Airlines for the city council's consideration to be discussed at the Lewiston City Council regular meeting on January 29th.
That's a special meeting.
Yeah, it's special.
Is that the special meeting? At the regular meeting on January 22nd, or the special meeting on 1/29. Is that the motion?
I thought we had a regular meeting on January 29th.
On the 22nd, Monday, but we're not gonna have it.
We're not gonna have a
Oh, this is
contract.
January, we haven't had a work session. I apologize. So it'd be special meeting. I apologize for saying regular meeting.
You want to amend your motion?
Amended, so amended.
Do you concur?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
The motion by Councilor Licky, second by Councilor Forrest, to direct Mayor Johnson and staff to negotiate a minimum revenue guarantee agreement with United Airlines for the city council's consideration for the January 29th special meeting. That sound like it makes sense?
Or before, or sooner, or sooner.
Or sooner?
For discussion,
Is there discussion, Councilor Speckmeyer?
No comment?
I would like to know the staff and mayor's plan to fund this so that we can clarify that we aren't using funds that we've allocated elsewhere or need to make a major change, et cetera.
You want me to answer that?
Amy Gordon, city treasurer, my recommendation would be that you would amend your budget using city reserves. That's what I'm saying. And you would, need to, in that amendment, appropriate the full $4 million, just because you entered into a contract that guaranteed potentially up to $4 million.
Right.
You'll have to do it for the full liability.
And if that changed at all, we just re-amend it to not have it locked into
No, you
that?
have to appropriate the full value of your contract, whether that ends up being your true expense or not, that would get adjusted at the end of the contract, but
I see,
you would have to appropriate the full amount.
right, okay.
And these would be general fund dollars, not property taxes,
Right.
so, yeah.
And just for process sake, we can approve the contract and then we would do the amendments the same time we do all other amendments.
They'd be part of your annual amendment process that coincides with the budget process, and you would formally adopt those in August.
I guess I have a comment. I do think it's important that we think of this as as elected officials, mayor and council involved. We have big manufacturers that use that airport and bring their clients in or flying out, and they contribute. If we talk about being business friendly and property taxes, they contribute a lot to the city of Lewiston, and so we want to make sure to be business friendly that we're providing those kind of services. And so it would be a shame if we just completely didn't care about where the state of the airport would go, and then them have to find other ways to utilize those services if we could provide them. So I just, keeping that in mind when we're making this decision, and that we're not trying to just spend money willy-nilly, but we are really trying to make sure that our big manufacturers, our business here that contribute to this valley are also being taken care of, so they continue to want to do business here, and then hopefully bring other businesses in as well.
Councilor Drickmeyer, if you have no comments, I will ask those in favor to please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. What do you think?
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you, councilors and everyone in the audience. Next, we move to agenda item 5, adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, for a motion,
Motion's in order.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
So,
So
moved by
fast.
Councilor Lickey, second by Councilor Schroeder, that we adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.